Hello and welcome everybody to our introduction of Advanced Insights. I just want to thank you all for joining. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Justin. I'm the founder and CEO of PatchMyPC. And in this webinar today, we're really excited to be talking about a new product that's really going to allow you to view and expose data in ConfigMan to really allow your team to see important data points that are not easily accessible. So with that said, let me introduce John Quirk and Kieran, who will be driving a lot of the demo and overview of Advanced Insights today. So welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Justin. Thank you, Corey. And thanks all of you for taking the time to join us today. As Justin was just outlining, we're going to have a run through the Advanced Insights product today. So we have some slides to just introduce some of the concepts, but this will be mostly demo heavy stuff, so we don't have a lot of PowerPoint. The first question that people generally ask us about this stuff is, what is Advanced Insights? And so the straightforward answer to that is that Advanced Insights is a HTML5 dashboard portal for reporting on the Microsoft Configuration Manager dataset. So Advanced Insights hooks directly into your Config Manager database in order to render data which you have been accumulating over the great many years that you've been using Configuration Manager for your systems management activities. And the main reason that we have built this tool is because this is what we hear from our customers, that Configuration Manager has really good functionality and builds a really good data set, but it doesn't present the data that it holds in a way that is usable or acceptable to us today. So unattractive, they are I appear to be having some technical problems. I'll be back. That's good. Unattractive, they're unintuitive. The vast majority of the reports that are out of the box are text only. Hardly any of them have any charting in them. Even our quite advanced reports that we provide from SQL Reporting Services perspective are really not that great these days. They tend to be quite slow to render. And we have a promise which we have delivered to our customers, that is, our catalog is industry leading. We've got well in excess of 1,000 apps that we cover in our catalog today and are adding them at a very significant rate. But we want to make sure that you are able to demonstrate to yourselves and to your managers and anyone else who's interested in the environment that we are actually doing what we say we're doing, that we are improving your security posture, and we are keeping our applications up to date for stability and security reasons. And so we want to be able to provide a better experience for reporting on that updates data set, as well as everything else that Configuration Manager can deliver. And so we want you to have a better experience with the data that you have already built inside of Configuration Manager. And so what we're looking to do with Advanced Insights is to provide an interface which is cross-platform. It'll work on iPads and phones and all those kinds of things, so you don't need the Config Manager console in order to be able to interact with this data. SQL Reporting Services is broadly Windows only. We want that to be accessible and attractive and intuitive to use. You shouldn't have to know how Configuration Manager works in order to be able to make use of the Configuration Manager dataset. Another frustration that we commonly hear from customers is that if you know precisely what it is that you want from Configuration Manager, there is a reasonably good chance that one of the 500 reports that it includes out of the box will have that data. But you need to know specifically what it is that you need, and you need to know where that is stored. And so what we want to do with Advanced Insights is to provide you with plenty of high-level views of a particular discipline, but then always with the ability to drill through to be able to see a broader and a deeper data set. So we want to be able to provide you with an at-a-glance daily check type view of the software update landscape, for example, but then allow you, if you see something which attracts your interest in that dashboard, to always be able to drill through to get to the index object, whether that's going to be a client or an update or a software update group or a deployment or whatever else it might be. And then we're going to further make that more usable and accessible by providing a global search capability. So you don't even really need to know where in the Advanced Insights interface a particular thing is likely to be. If you're interested in a computer name or an IP address or a username or a software update KB article number or whatever it might be, then you can just search for that object in Advanced Insights global search, and it will just find them for you wherever they may be scattered across the Configuration Manager database. We're also going to be fully RBAC compliant with all of that as well. So if you have a role-based access control role inside of Configuration Manager that only allows you to see, say, laptops in New York, then when you access the Advanced Insights interface, it'll also just show you that subset of clients. And the Advanced Insights interface also has its own RBAC model where we can assign particular views and functions to security groups as well. So if you don't want to give your help desk the ability to view content sources and OS deployment statistics or whatever it might be, and just show them a subset of data that we're going to present, then you can also scope that data out for them from an Advanced Insights perspective as well. And so we talk about Advanced Insights as being built on 3 pillars, and the first of those is this attractive, intuitive interface that I've just been talking about. And so what I want to do first of all is demo to you what that experience is like. So I'm sure that most of you on the call today will be familiar with this kind of experience. So this is an example of the overall compliance software update report, looking here at a particular update group for a particular collection. And so this is the kind of experience that we're accustomed to today when it comes to software update reporting. So as I said, we can get the data that we need out of this, but it's not exactly attractive. It arguably isn't intuitive, and there's a lot of back and forth required in this kind of interface. You know, if you decide that you want a slightly different data set, then you generally have to go back to where you came in and begin again setting the reports up, and the performance of them can be somewhat questionable as well. And so what we want to provide you with when it comes to the Advanced Insights interface is something that's a lot more attractive and a lot more intuitive. So I will drop into the Advanced Insights interface now and just run you around some examples of where we are providing that kind of experience. So when you first log in to Advanced Insights, this is the view that is most likely to greet you. So this is our home dashboard. And because of the nature of the Patch My PC business, the home dashboard has a focus on software update and support statistics and properties to give you a good visibility of whether everything in your software updates landscape is working the way that you would expect it to. And so what I can see here is the version of Configuration Manager that I'm running and how long that has got left in support. I can see the number of managed devices that I've got in the environment compared to the total number of devices. Maybe there are some devices that don't have clients, and maybe I should do some work on that. This is another tile that might show me where work is required. This is the count of updates which are being requested by devices in the environment which are not currently deployed. So maybe I've missed including some updates from my software update point into one of my software update groups. So there's some work I need to do there. And if anything's failed to distribute, we'll show that here too. And then we're going to have a bunch of other properties at the bottom here that are just going to show me various bits and pieces of information. Here we're looking at clients. Here we're looking at the supported versions of Windows we've got in the environment, and the supported versions of the Microsoft Office 365 apps. Where devices are scanning against the software update point, we're going to show you the overall status of that. A common thing that we hear from customers where a change has been made in the environment that maybe directs devices to the wrong WSUS server or just introduces some group policy that breaks the software update connection. It can take quite a while before the config manager administrator notices there's a problem with scanning, because it can be quite a while before that data starts to disappear from the console. So this is a nice friendly view that basically I've got a big green bar here on the right hand side, and so broadly things are looking okay, but there have been a couple of failures. And then we'll also show you your computer compliance data from the least compliant computer perspective and your least compliant updates. But all of these individual statistics that I'm looking at here have entire dashboards associated with them as well. The idea with this is just a quick at a glance view to make sure that everything looks the way that you would generally expect it to. And so I'll move on to the software updates dashboard here because it's likely that that's going to be a big area for everyone on this call. And so what we're looking at here now is an extended set of the type of data that we were just talking about. We're going to see the software update point and what its synchronization status looks like. I can drill through, if you've got multiple subs, you'll see them all surfaced in here. It gives you details about synchronization status and what version of the catalog you're currently synced to. The same updates requiring deployment stat as I saw before. And then we're also going to show you a quick summary view of your compliance against the updates that you have deployed this month and the updates that you have deployed in previous months. So for example, if I scroll back through here, I can see that my May 2023 updates, I'm now at 88% compliance, and so there's still a few machines which have not brought themselves into compliance against that month's updates, and I really would have expected them to do so by now. And so one of the key tenets of the Advanced Insights experience is that you should always be able to click on anything that you see that seems to be interesting to you, to be able to get additional details. And here what we can see is that basically there's a bunch of machines that have not scanned against this update. They're almost certainly obsolete in my environment now. And so I might want to try to work out which machines it is that haven't told me their status against this particular Windows 10 update. And so I will always be able to drill through for further data. So now we're starting to get through to see the specifics for this individual update, the metadata associated with it, and the status of all of the machines in the environment. And so here I can start to see where devices have an unknown status against that. But if I was interested in other things about this update, maybe the thing is too big and it's not getting deployed to the clients because it doesn't fit in the cache. So we'll surface that data here. And one of the frustrations that we commonly hear from customers about working with software updates in the configuration manager environment natively is that you don't necessarily get to see all of the data that you might want at your fingertips in the view that you're currently operating in. So for example, there's no reports that will tell you which updates are in a software update group. So what we're going to show here is that this particular update is a member of this software update group. I can see that it is deployed. I can see the specifics for all of the deployments that are associated with this individual update as well. And then if I wanted to get to the details of the deployment status for that, then again, I can drill through and see further details about exactly what's happening with this particular deployment. So I can see here basically a load of my machines are compliant. There's some that haven't reported the status in and one that is non-compliant at the moment. So that's a good example of where we're taking a complex data set and then providing you with a high level overview of it, but giving you the ability to drill through and get to the individual statistics behind that high level data. We've got lots of other views of software updates, just depending on the type of thing that you're specifically interested in. So if you just wanted to see a raw view of all of your updates and maybe you wanted to report on compliance against those for a particular collection, then you'll be able to do so here. And you'll notice that we've got Patch My PC updates, Microsoft updates, but also any of the other catalogs that you have available in your environment are going to be surfaced in here as well. Most of our customers, we know, tend to use software update groups for their update deployments on a monthly basis, and so we will give you compliance statistics just at a glance for what your compliance looks like against individual software update groups, and then always with the ability to drill in for further information if that was something that you were interested in. So again, we're going to show here what my statistics look like for that. Anywhere you see a computer name like this in the interface, you're always going to be able to drill through for further information about that device. So another thing that we were looking to fix as far as we're concerned around Advanced Insights was this scenario where we know that Configuration Manager knows a lot about an individual client, but some of that data is only available in the computer properties in the console, some is only in the Resource Explorer, other is available in the reports, but only in reports. Some other stuff is just in status messages, and it can be quite hard to navigate your way around that. And so this device view that we have here is going to bring all of the data that we have in Configuration Manager about an individual client and surface it so that I've got one place to view all of that data. I've come to this from a software updates page, and so it's automatically brought me to the updates tab. And what I can see here is that there's a couple of updates which are required on this machine. So if I wanted to be able to do something about this, then again, one of the things that Advanced Insights is going to provide me is, without needing the console, I can instruct these clients to do certain things. So for example, if I wanted this device to do an application update deployment, then I can force that to do it right now. If the appropriate thing was to initiate remote control, or maybe to push a reboot to this machine, then again, as you'd expect, I could do that from here. And that's all the provider communication. So we're talking to the client on the config manager client on the device there to force that update to start, so the user will still get the same notification experience as you'd expect. There's loads of other data in here around the individual client, just depending on the type of thing that you're interested in. But we're going to pull in all sorts of different data just to make sure that this is a tool that's usable not just for software update reporting, but also for all of the other disciplines that we have in Configuration Manager. And so one of the other areas that that we're trying to make sure that we do a good job of presenting data that the config manager console and database hold but don't present particularly well is in OS deployment. So there's no native OS deployment reporting in Configuration Manager, even though it's a particularly powerful capability of the tool. And so what we're going to show here is that for a particular date range, so we can set this back in time, these are all of the task sequence completion statistics that we have for all of the task sequences in the environment, and I could filter it to an individual task sequence if I wished. It's going to show us what the performance looks like for those task sequences as they have been deployed, and it's also going to show me the outcome of every build that took place. If there are any common errors that are experienced during those deployments, we're also going to show those here. So, for example, if I wanted to see all of the machines that have failed this particular random package failure simulation that we have here, then this will show me all the devices that failed that and when. And if I want more detail about that, then I can drill in further, and on the OS deployment tab here in the device view, it's going to show me all of the task sequences that have run on this machine, and it's going to surface each of the status messages from all of the tasks that completed as part of that. If there are additional details behind those tasks with script output or whatever, then we're also going to surface that in here as well. So we should be able to again go from a high level view of what operating system performance looks like to a very low level view of what happened on any individual client. Another area where we're trying to provide a friendlier and more useful view of data that Config Manager hosts is in our content sources dashboard. So we know that Configuration Manager has a capability to do this. It has a client data sources page, but there are a vast number of limitations with this. The first thing is it'll only show you the top distributed content, and it turns out the top means 5, but it also won't allow you to drill through for any data here, so I can't see which clients have actually accessed any of this content. I can't get any further detail from this. If I change the chart into a table, then it gives me the raw numbers, but I can't really get any useful information out of this. And so the data exists in the Config Manager database for how our clients are accessing their content and from where. And so you can quite clearly see here in our environment when Patch Tuesday was, that's always the busiest day for us. And what this allows me to do is to see what the impact is of the deployment of caching technologies, for example. So I can see here how much content's been served up by peer cache and by branch cache. If I see a problem with maybe the cost of my CMG is going through the roof and I wanted to understand which content is being downloaded from the CMG, then I can see specifically everything which has been served up from the Cloud Management Gateway here. So here I can see there's loads of Patch My PC updates which have been farmed out, some of which are really quite large. I can see which individual devices have downloaded how much content from the CMG, and I can also see a breakdown of what types of content that is. So maybe I want to make some changes here to try and reduce that cost. And we'll also show you that data on a per client basis as well. So for example, if you wanted to see the individual peers that are serving up content, then I can drill through and see that here the busiest peer in my environment has served 12 gig this month, and I can view that individual peer and see which content it's served to which devices. And this helps me to do things like distribution point planning. It helps me to identify where there may be an opportunity to retire some DPs, or maybe I need to allocate some further super peers or those kinds of things. So there's lots and lots of data that sits inside of the Configuration Manager database that we can do a much better job of presenting than Config Manager natively manages. And so that's just a quick view of a set of those functions. What I'm going to do now is just switch back quickly to my PowerPoint, and we'll move on to the second pillar that we're built on. So everything that we've seen so far in this demo has been things which Configuration Manager already hosts. So Config Manager builds this large database of inventory and compliance properties, but one of the frustrations that we hear about Config Manager is that the hardware inventory schema, some of it is really quite old. So we still are able to do reporting on CD-ROM and parallel port stuff. And I would imagine that there's going to be quite a few people on this call who've never heard of a PCM-CIA card, but it still has a class for reporting on these kind of ancient technologies. But it hasn't really kept up with some of the modern operating system properties that we know that that customers find really useful. And so the second thing that we want to do with Advanced Insights is we want to bring in additional inventory properties that we know are useful to not just the Config Manager guys in the environment, but other support teams and project teams and asset managers and those kinds of things. So, for example, Configuration Manager natively doesn't have an ability to report on user-based applications, and we know that that's something which is especially useful these days, and we hear a lot about that because of the rest of the work that Patch My PC do, and so we know that we can extend Config Manager's functionality by bringing in new and useful inventory properties in order to be able to better present the data that the operating system holds. And so at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kieran, who will run us around some of the functionality that we have in Advanced Insights and our custom inventory classes. Thanks, Kieran.
Cheers, John. Thanks for that. I'll share my screen quickly. So when you first install Advanced Insights, what you have to do is you have to extend the inventory for your Config Manager environment. So what we're going to do is we're going to load up the administration page, and we're going to go to settings at the bottom here. The demo gods have cursed me. And then when we go to the Advanced Insights inventory extensions, what we can see here is these are the extensions that we're extending, so we can look for the logical disk partitions, the battery information, certificate information. We can look at like local groups, the monitors, and different updates and user apps, which is quite key. If we expand these things, we can see how many devices that are collected, and we see all the classes that we're collecting as well. And these are all in our custom Patch My PC WMI repository. And if we go scope to hardware on the left hand side here, we can see go up to displays, and what we'll be able to see here is all the different makes and models of monitors that we have in our environment. So we click on the little button here at the top, and we have different types of options to see different collections of data that we have inside there. So we can see the different models, we can see the different connections, so we can see device to connect to our display port, HDMI, VGA, filter these based on collections as well, like John mentioned earlier. So we can pick on, for example, let's say my device here, so I can see this is my laptop, and it have two monitors, on my internal monitor connected by a display port. And if I click on this now, I'll be able to go to my individual device page, and then I can see the configuration of my layouts. I have my monitor on my left hand side. This is my primary screen, which has got the Windows icon seen, and then I have my two screens on the side by side. I can see which connection it's using, the size of my monitor, resolution, serial number, and the manufacturer of the monitor as well. And we can go that for all the devices in the environment, and also we can refresh the data from here. Or if we wanted to, we can view all the chart data as well. We can just view all the information from here. We also show the battery information. So the battery information here, so we show you the design capacity from where the device is, its battery config from manufacturer. So we can see this battery here had 93,600. It's actually at a charge capacity now of 38,510. Which means it's running at 41% battery health. So we might want to think about changing the battery on this device. We know this is an older device now, sort of thing. There's like this one, this run at 0% because it's only got 340 charge capacity left. So if we take the power out, this device is going to power off straight away. Also on the storage information, So we can show you wear rates of the disk. So we can see, like, for example, this device here, we can see this is running on the SATA bus. This has been up for 73 days and 23 hours. It's got 24% wear rate. Temperature on the disk at the moment is 47%. And we can see the model of the device as well. The other features that we're doing in Advanced Insights are what we're doing is we get the devices to go speak to the Microsoft catalog, so we can scan against them to see where there may be a misconfiguration in your environment. So we can see in this environment here, we can see there is 65 required updates. So in here, we can see which updates are missing from the software update point. So these are products and categories which are not synced in the SUP. So we can see here if we need to go and add some more. So we can see here we've got 10 devices here which are requiring this update here, but they're not synced in the software update point. We're also pulling in the drivers provided from Microsoft. So we can click on here. We can see if you wanted to deploy some updates, driver updates from Config Manager, we can tick those drivers enabled from Microsoft. You see, like, we need like 10 Lenovo monitor drivers in this environment. So we can maybe think about reviewing if we want to deploy some drivers from the Microsoft catalog as well. If we want to see what the missing configuration is, we can click on the top corner here and we can drill through here and we can see what are those missing categories that we need to go and configure in our software update point. User inventory, so we can see which user apps are installed on devices. So we can see we've got 29 user installed apps in our environment. We can then go and filter this based on user apps. So we can have a look in here with like user, and we can see which user apps are in here. So we can see in this round we've got Microsoft OneDrive. We've got 11 different versions in this environment. If we click on Microsoft OneDrive, I can then go and see, well, we've got this problem here with this device, which is associated to this user, but it has 5 or 6 different versions of a OneDrive. So if we click on this one device here, we can go further down to the individual device. We can click on software, and then if we do a search by the display name, if we go over here and just type in search, and look for OneDrive, we can then go and see all the different versions of OneDrive that's actually on this machine and the user's profiles that have logged onto the device. So we might want to do some remediation somehow by deploying some scripts to go and say, do we need to get off users' profiles off the machine, or try and remove all the version of user installed applications, which is quite key in a lot of the apps that we have these days. I think at that point, I think we're back to Job.
Excellent. Thank you, Kieran.
Quick
view there of our custom inventory classes. And this is a big area for us. So we're going to be building out more and more software updates and more and more custom inventory classes to bring in lots more additional data. So we know that there's plenty of stuff in the operating system that will be useful to our customers in order to be able to better manage the environment. So there's quite a gift in having the config manager infrastructure there to gather that data for you, and then because we manage the presentation layer, we can have it built the way that we want it on the client side and then present it the way that we want it server side. So so we've got some good opportunities there. The third area that the third pillar that we talk about Advanced Insights being built on is around how we can further extend the capability of the data set that Configuration Manager has built for us beyond custom inventory classes by reaching out into some first-party APIs which we host and some third-party APIs hosted by the likes of Microsoft and NIST and the warranty vendors from the likes of Dell and Toshiba and those kinds of guys, in order to be able to build on top of the config manager data set. And so the The last area that we're going to explore today is around how we can use the Advanced Insights interface to hook into some external data sets to supplement the config manager data and provide a better experience there. So the first area that I'll have a quick look at is that on the home dashboard, one of the things that you may have noticed was that we present this dash stat here and also this chart here, which is going to show us the status of our Windows and Office support. And this is an example of where we are building on the functionality that Microsoft natively provide to us in order to provide a better experience for you guys. And so what we're doing here is we're taking properties that Configuration Manager knows natively. So for example, Configuration Manager knows what SKU your versions of Windows 10 and Windows 11 are, and it knows what version they're running. So all of this data is available natively in the Config Manager console already, and it knows what servicing channel those are in. But what Config Manager doesn't present is this data that we have here under the support information. So one of our APIs takes this data from Microsoft and brings it into the Advanced Insights interface so that we can use all of the data we have around edition and SKU and release info in order to be able to decide whether or not your versions of Windows and your versions of Office are in support. And so this allows you to keep a quick eye on whether you've got devices in the environment which are falling out of support because they're running unsupported versions of Windows and of Office. So if I wanted to see which these devices are that are running on unsupported version of Office, for example, then I can see here that this particular machine is on version 2302 in the monthly enterprise channel, but the supported versions of the monthly enterprise channel are 2304 and 2305 now. So because this one is in a monthly channel, it needs to be kept up to date more frequently. And I can see here that I've got others that are in the semi-annual channel, but they are running a really old version 2108, whereas the semi-annual channel now needs to be on 2208. So those are basically a whole year out of date. So I've got a little bit of work to do there. The Config Manager console doesn't make it easy to keep on top of this stuff, and so we think that's a really valuable data set. The next area that I'll look at when we're reaching into external data and supplementing the data that's in the Configuration Manager environment is around the area of warranty. So what we can see here is that I've got a bunch of machines in my environment that are made by some of the vendors that we support. So I've got Lenovo devices here, I've got some Dell devices, and we're going to pull warranty information for those machines into the environment. The way that we do this is that we have our own API which we have built, which then hooks into the APIs that the vendors provide. So we have a kind of middle tier that sits in between all of the different warranty providers. And what that allows us to do is to rapidly cache the warranty information from those vendors to show where devices are out of warranty or where they're nearing warranty end or where they have indeed expired. And there's a couple of different reasons why this is useful. One is that it's just useful from a support perspective to know if a device is in warranty or not. But another thing is that the warranty vendors sometimes provide us with interesting little bits and pieces of data that are useful just from a general support perspective. So, for example, I can accurately age some of these devices because Dell provide a ship date for the device in their warranty service. And then if I want to know a little bit more information about the individual machine and its warranty status, then I can always drill in and see some further, more detailed info here. So here I can see, for example, that this device's warranty has run out for its battery back in 2017, but also the warranty for the actual device itself ran out in 2019 as well. So it's probably time we bought Andy a new laptop. Really, that one's now showing its age. So we get good feedback on this, and think it's a really useful function. And then the final area that I wanted to explore when it comes to third-party data is this threat analytics dashboard. So this is quite a complicated piece of work, but essentially what is happening here is we are taking the software update data that Configuration Manager already hosts around knowing that there are software updates which are required in the environment, and then we take all of the data that we have gathered from the Config Manager environment and submit that data to some APIs that provide CVE information. So we're going to talk to the Microsoft Security Research Center API, MSRC. We'll talk to NIST and also to Red Hat because they hold CVE data for some of the web platforms. And we're going to use that data to paint this dashboard. And the idea with this is that we hear frustrations from customers who are using third-party tools for security analysis stuff around software updates. So tools like Tenable and Rapid7 and Tanium and those kinds of things, where the way that the data is presented in those tools makes the problem look insurmountable, when actually there's a small number of actions that I might take that will improve my security posture quite dramatically. So from a software updates perspective, what I can see here is that there are 23 devices in this demo environment which are affected by any kind of Microsoft CVE at all. Of those, 9 of them are affected by a critical CVE. There are 4 critical Microsoft CVEs that affect my environment, and in order to address that, there are 3 specific critical updates that I should deploy. And so there's actually a small amount of work that I need to do here to push out these updates onto this set of devices in order to bring myself into a compliance position where I have no critical CVEs. So on the face of it, it looks quite bad. There's 121 different CVEs that are relevant for the environment, but most of them are really not that serious. So what we wanted to do is we want to be able to come here and see instantly, what is it that I should be working on? Where is my biggest problem? And so we're going to surface in here what the attack vector for this particular CVE is. So we'll give you some good detail around what the level of complexity of this attack is and whether it's remotable and those kinds of things. And then we're also going to get you straight to the nub of what it is that you need to do in order to address it. And the reason that we think that that's an important thing to stress is that for me in this environment, to address this particular CVE, I have to roll out these 4 updates to this group of 9 machines that are listed on the left here. And that's it, basically. I don't have to do anything else. But if you look in the actual CVE, we will show you all the data in here just for your own interest. These are all of the software updates which are associated with this CVE. But as you can see, most of these are not even present in my software update point because they're for platforms that I don't support. I don't have Windows 11 running on ARM and those kinds of things in the environment. And so if you view just the CVE or you view this data from a tool like Rapid7, what it'll show you is all of this data, and then it is left for you to go and work out what it is you're at. What we want to do is show you specifically which machines require which updates and then allow you to get on immediately and start to work on that. So if, for example, I wanted to see which of the 5 machines that need this Windows 10 update deploying in order to bring themselves into compliance, then I can drill in and we're going to superimpose these data sets together here. So I'm still looking at CVE related info, but this is now Microsoft software update data from my software update scan information. And I can see here the owners of all of these machines, and I can see the specific machines that are actually requiring this. And then if the appropriate thing for me to do was to actually carry out some action against this, and as we saw in the demo a moment ago, I can do that from right here in this interface. So here I could get this machine to evaluate its update deployments, or I could push a restart to it, or whatever else I might do with it. And so we want to be able to make sure that you can always do this from right here in this interface. We want to be able to see that there is an issue and begin to address that issue right here, right now. We'll bring in some other bits and pieces of information that are relevant from the API to give you more details about, what this affects and how it might be manifest, but always looking to get you to the point where you can act on it instantly. So this table here lists all of the Microsoft CVEs that are relevant for the environment. And then this table below is going to show me the exact same data set, but for updates which are in the Patch My PC catalog. So where there are updates which you have synced into your environment from our catalog, and those have CVE data associated with them, we publish that information as well. And then Advanced Insights is going to read that information, submit those CVEs to NIST to get all of the metadata associated with them, and then we're going to bring that into this interface as well. And so this is going to tell us precisely what we need to be deploying in order to address this particular risk, what the vulnerability of it is, and how we might go on and act for that. And so What we hope to achieve with this is to give you a friendly view so that when your security guy is coming with you with a great big long list of CVEs that are now applicable to the environment because of this month's software updates that have been released, you are in a better place to be able to more rapidly act and take quicker decisions on that. So I think at that point, that brings me to the end of everything that we wanted to cover off as far as demo was concerned. So I'll switch back to my PowerPoint and we'll run through a couple of the details around licensing and availability and those kinds of things. And then we'll take some questions from the Q&A, assuming that there have been some, as we get through this. So we are announcing the availability of the Enterprise Premium SKU today. So this is something which we've launched this week. Enterprise Premium is the full Enterprise Plus subscription that you will be familiar with today, plus everything that I have just shown you as far as the Advanced Insights interface is concerned. So customers who purchase Enterprise Premium will get access to everything that we have shown you today as far as the Advanced Insights product is concerned. Existing customers who are on the Enterprise Plus SKU will either already have had or will shortly be receiving an invite to sign up for a showcase of the Advanced Insights product that we've just looked through there. And one of the things that you'll be able to do with Advanced Insights under the showcases, you'll be able to trial out all of the functionality that we've just seen for no additional charge for 6 months. And then at the end of that 6-month period, you have the option of upgrading to the Enterprise Premium SKU to continue to have all of that functionality. If you choose not to do so, then you still can make some use of Insights, but you'll get access to this interface, which is the Patch Insights version of Advanced Insights. And the difference between Advanced Insights and Patch Insights is that the Patch Insights product is there to deliver solely on our commitment to ensure that you have the best reporting for the software update landscape. So you'll notice that the menu here at the moment is significantly reduced from what we were looking at previously. I still see the top level dashboard exactly the same as I did before, and I see all of the objects in the software updates node, including the top level dashboard and reporting against deployments and update groups, etc. So I can still see all of my software update compliance, but I don't get any of the other features that we were looking at previously. So the second pillar that we build on in terms of custom inventory, and the third pillar that we're built on in terms of third-party APIs for the likes of warranty and security analysis and those kinds of things. Those are features of the Advanced Insights product alone. You also don't get the Microsoft Update status that Kieran showed, where we're scanning against the Microsoft Update catalog and bringing in missing configuration items and those kinds of things, because that also relies on our custom inventory extensions. But there will still, for anyone who deploys the Advanced Insights product, there will always be an experience inside of the Enterprise Patch, Enterprise Plus and Enterprise Premium SKUs, just depending on what level you sit at there. And so the next steps for any of you who are new to Advanced Insights and the stuff that we're showing today are a couple of things. If you're an existing customer, then you can register for the Advanced Insights Showcase, which is a 6-month trial of the full product we've shown today. And you can sign up for that via this link or QR code here. And if you're not currently a Patch My PC customer and are tremendously excited by everything I've just shown you, then you can also sign up for a trial of the full Patch My PC product set. So that will be the publisher to deploy the third-party patches, as well as the Advanced Insights interface that we've run through today. That's available as a free trial for you to register for today as well. And that brings me to the end of the deck and the end of the demo. And so we will now have a look at some questions, I guess.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. Were there any questions from our team that really stood out that might be good to go back and cover either on a demo? Yeah, anyone notice anything that we could go back to? I think probably the most common one was the comparison between Patch Insights and Advanced Insights, and you just covered that pretty well, John. Let me just take a look here.
I think one of the common questions was, What about if your workload is switched from config manager for software updates to WFB sort of thing? So
yeah, and I think that's actually a really good question. Yeah, we see that quite commonly. So the experience that you would get right now is that there would be little to no data in the software updates dashboard. So you wouldn't get much information in here because if you're not scanning against WSUS, then you don't get any of the compliance data pushed into the config manager database. And that's one of the reasons that we've built this dashboard here. So the idea is that we're bringing in the same compliance data that WFB would have into the config manager environment by getting the devices to scan against Microsoft updates. So we have some further work to build in this space to start to hook this into the threat analytics dashboard and those kinds of things. But our expectation is that ultimately you'll be able to get pretty much the same software update compliance reporting experience. I mean, it's pretty much there already in here as far as individual updates are concerned, but we'll be able to bring the same sort of experience around the threat analytics dashboard into this space ultimately as well. But right now, if you've shifted that workload to WFB, then obviously you don't have update deployments and update groups, so none of those reports have any data.
So here's a question, John. I'm not sure if we covered some of this during the demo, but question, these reports look great from a view perspective, but is there a way to perform various actions on devices directly? So did we cover things like right-click actions for client policy, scanning, malware actions? Did we look at that in the demo? If not, maybe we could show that off.
Yeah, we saw a couple of those, but essentially what we're doing here is the version that
you'll need to share your screen again, John. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I've lost that, haven't I? 1 second. So we're on that one there. Yeah, so whenever I look at an individual machine here, then I have a bunch of different. These are basically the standard right-click actions that we have in the interface. If you've got the config manager console. So, for example, if I wanted to force my machine to do a computer policy refresh, then I can push that from here. If I wanted to bring in its hardware inventory right now or anything along those kinds of lines, then I can do so as well. I can force it to do an application deployment evaluation or a software update deployment evaluation. And also, if you're using Defender as your malware engine, then you can force a malware scan from here as well. We'll give you the ability to invoke a collection of logs for devices which are connected over CMG. If they're remote from you, then we'll bring those in by the software inventory process. And we'll also give you the ability just to view the logs of an individual machine from here. You can invoke remote control. So if you're you can use the config manager remote control agent without having to have the console right from here as well. You can push a restart, and if your environment will support it, you can also wake up a device which is not currently online. So we have those kinds of capabilities. We also have the ability to add and remove devices from collections. So if I wanted to add my machine here into Kieran's autopilot test collection, for example, then I can add that to a collection from here, and then maybe that gets it some policy or some applications deployed or those kinds of things. And similarly, I can remove the device from collections as a one-off here as well. So so I get to interact with an individual machine on that basis. And if modifying collections is your jam, then we'll also give you the ability to bulk import into collections and those kinds of things as well. So one of the things that I can do in here is I can find myself a collection that I'm interested in, and then I can bulk add resources just by pasting in a comma separated list of names in here. And one of the things that's quite cool about this interface is that we will pre-flight check all of the resources before we attempt to add them. So it's really quick. So that if there's any typos or devices which are not clients or whatever, then we just automatically don't bother trying to tell them, try to add them, and then we'll just report on those once we've done so below. So we've got some reasonably good collection modification capabilities in there, as well as our raw individual machine manipulation. I can see a couple of other questions in here now. So we make some changes. How long will it take to sync that change and see the report? So we are not caching anything here. So all of this data is live from the config manager database. So as soon as the database is updated to reflect the data that the clients have sent in, you will see it instantly in the Insights interface as well. So there's no data caching. The only data that we are building ourselves is around warranty and CVE information. So everything should be basically live as you see it in the console, and arguably better than you see in the console potentially, in that we don't rely on much in the way of summarized data. We're querying the live data set.
In fact, John, there was a bunch of themes on that question, so let me expand it too, because there's themes around you know, what data is accessible. Do I need to connect to clients to get it? Do I need to install new agent? Do I need to open firewall? Or what if my clients are on the internet over CMG, or they're in another forest, or they're in another domain? And the answer to all these questions is basically, if you can do it in ConfigMan and the data is in ConfigMan, then it's going to show up here at that same speed, right? So
precisely that.
You know, if you're going to pull up inventory data, whether it's a client on the internet over CMG or in another forest, if it's already flown up to ConfigMan, then it's going to be here. You don't need to do anything extra. You don't need any configuration. You don't need to open up firewalls. You don't need any security changes. This is just fully integrated with the ConfigMan server side and the database side. So anything that's working in ConfigMan will render here at the same speed that it gets to the ConfigMan database. So that's pretty simple. There's not a lot of environment changes you're going to have to take to get this to change. Even some of this data that John talked about that wasn't available in native ConfigMan hardware inventory, like battery health and drive and some of those other things, it is done through an inventory extension, but even that is kind of painless, and you just get to choose if you want to do that. You push it, and then we'll use ConfigMan to reach down and put that extension on all the devices. Again, you don't need any firewall ports or security changes to the clients. It's just going to use ConfigMan to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's no agent associated with any of this. We're talking directly to ConfigMan. The only scenario where there are firewall changes required isn't at the client side, but we do see customers where we need to make firewall changes in order for the Advanced Insights server to be able to get out to things like the Microsoft Security Research Center API and our APIs, which we host. But there's nothing client side required other than installing our extensions. I see a question that Graham's posted about are there any Patch Tuesday type reports that show recently announced CVEs and updates along with their severity and cross-reference that with what is and isn't deployed. I love the idea of that. So we sort of have that data, I suppose, but I think that probably plays into some of the stuff that we've been discussing internally around improving security reporting and that kind of stuff. So sort of no, I suppose, but watch this space, I guess, is what we'd say. I don't know if I see.
You know,
questions.
Another theme was, and we probably talked to this a couple times, but is this only for ConfigMan? And what about Intune? And the short answer is what we're shipping today works with ConfigMan, and John and his team are working on dreaming up how this would work for Intune. So it's on our roadmap. We're not ready to talk about timelines, but yeah, our ambition is to get all this working as well with Intune.
Maybe, John, we could go back to threat analytics for a second and show the patch MyPC data again. I've seen in the last few minutes quite a few people ask about CVE data for non-Microsoft updates.
Yeah, so in typical, this is what's going on as we're actually presenting this. We've rolled out updates in the time this demo has been going on, and we now only have these two that actually have CVEs outstanding in our environment. But we're basically going to bring in exactly the same data set as we do for Microsoft updates associated with the third-party updates that have CVE data in our environment as well. And so what I'm able to see here is that there's this particular Python update which is required on 11 devices in our environment, and that is that's showing us the list of machines that require it, what our exposure is to it. So there's bits of detail in here about what the the products which are vulnerable within this particular CVE, and what the attack vector is for it, and those kinds of things. So so we don't have quite as much data as we get from the Microsoft environment, just because we don't have the full MSRC data set, so the NIST data set isn't quite as verbose, but we bring in data from NIST and data from Red Hat into that table below there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, John. I might have thrown you off. I shared out our labs, so we had a lot more third-party update data.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. What else we have here?
We got asked a question about warranty. What sort of data can you export from the warranty page? If you want to just show that quickly, John. Do you want to share your screen again?
Yeah, sure. So we this basically anywhere in the Advanced Insights interface.
Let me. Oh, sorry. There you go, John. You're sharing.
Yeah, we're good.
We had to send you live.
Okie dokie. Anyway, you see a table like this, then these are all they're quite sophisticated, really. So, for example, if I wanted to filter this by just Dell machines, then I can apply that filter here, and then I can export that data set. And when I export that data, it's only going to bring out the filtered view. So I've already done the work that I need to massage the data into the format that I want. So our export options will always obey the filters, and you can apply multiple filters per column, but also per table. So there's plenty of options when it comes to filter and export and all that kind of thing for basically everything. Almost all of the tables, if not all the tables that you see in the environment, have the ability to filter and export.
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but we just had a question about threat analytics and what the terminology of breach means. I believe it's related to the cybersecurity standards for the United Kingdom. And if you haven't deployed the update in, is it 14 days?
Yeah, so Cyber Essentials is a particular standard for data security. So one of the things that the Cyber Essentials requirement brings is that you have 14 days from notification that a vendor has provided an update to a critical CVE. You have 14 days to deploy it. So this table here basically gives you a countdown of things which are not in breach, are nearing breach, and then are in breach, just to try and help you sort of keep on top of the deployments of that. But it's an area that we're interested in trying to build out a little bit more internationally specific. So we're looking into what some of the other non-Cyber Essentials standards might have in that space, so that we could sort of swap it out for some of the ones that might be more relevant for an international audience. But at the moment, it's basically, have you deployed the updates within the timescales that we require, which is 14 days.
One of the things we probably want to mention is that we're hitting the road again in September. We're at some of the shows in Europe and the United States. So John and myself are going to be there. So if you've got some questions face to face, it's worth coming to the events. I think we're at Endpoint Management session in Paris. We're at Experts Live in Prague. We're also going to Workspace Ninjas in Switzerland. Yes. We're at App Manage in the Netherlands. Is that correct? Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
We're going to be at MMS in Miami. So anybody stateside, come see us. And I think we're finishing off at Oslo, I think, as well. Nice. Nick. There you go.
The other thing that I was going to mention towards the end of this was that We are building out as we speak a library of YouTube content that goes over each of the functions and dashboards and capabilities of Advanced Insights. So there's a YouTube channel that we're building out that covers each of these in detail. So that's something else that to keep an eye out for. Anyone who signs up for Advanced Insights Showcase or purchases Enterprise Premium will also get a series of emails that include some of those walkthroughs and functions as well. So we're putting together quite a lot of content associated with how Insights works and the kinds of things that we're looking to bring to the market in the future as well.
We did have quite a few questions around RBAC. Did we cover some of the roles perhaps and like help desk and how we can limit things in Advanced Insights, John?
I can certainly show that. So if you can switch that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing to say is that if you have an RBAC role in Config Manager, you will sign on to Advanced Insights with your AD account, and we will give you the same role as you have in Config Manager. So if your Config Manager role only allows you to see laptops and you don't get to see servers, for example, then the Advanced Insights will also only show you laptops. Similarly, if you have a list of collections that you can view, but it's not most of them, you wouldn't see those collections either. So we just do that automatically, and so we limit the result set that you're shown. And then the second thing is that we have the ability to specify one or more roles that are associated with an AD security group, so that you can basically see here that if you're a member of this help desk role, then when you log in, you will be given these properties. So this is a list of all of the dashboards, and so we can say if, for example, we didn't want to give the help desk role the security and compliance dashboard so they can't see BitLocker and virus data, then we could remove that from them. Similarly, we wouldn't show them any of the admin roles, and we could also modify which of the client actions they are allowed to invoke. So if you didn't want to give the help desk the ability to restart machines, for example, then you could remove that from them. And also you can see here they don't have the collection modification role. Roles are cumulative as well, so you could have very detailed role sets and then have users be members of multiple groups, and they would just get whichever roles are assigned to them at logon.
Yeah, great question. Another one that we had was, can we customize the logo? I know this is something we did have. Did that make it in the current release of Advanced Insights, John?
So I think right now the short answer is no. The longer answer is you can, because it's just an image and you can replace it. So it's just a website image. But we did have an interface for changing it, but we had some problems with handling dark mode and light mode logos and them not swapping out properly. So right now we've hidden that feature while we work on a bug with it, but you can just change the file. The problem with that being, of course, when you upgrade, it'll get overwritten again. But we will bring back the support for you to be able to change the logo as well. Yeah, it was just it's a cosmetic thing that was causing us some hassle. So right now that's disabled, but it will be coming back. As I mentioned BitLocker there, one of the things we have that we didn't see in the demo earlier is this BitLocker dashboard. So this will show you the status of BitLocker on your machines, particularly if you have the full Config Manager MBAM integration set up. Then we'll also show you devices which have not escrowed their recovery keys into MBAM, breakdown of all the different BitLocker ciphers that you have and where there may be devices that are not encrypted and those kinds of things. So it's just a nice little data set to have.
There's currently not a Windows 11 readiness dashboard in Advanced Insights. One of the questions that's coming in the forum, but like John says, we've got the TPM data under BitLocker, so you can see if devices are TPM 1.2, they're supported for Windows 11. somebody
Yeah,
asked
it's an
us
interesting.
recently-
It's an interesting
Some-
request though, and it has come up before. Yeah.
Somebody asked about secure boot recently as well. So
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of areas there where having the custom WMI provider now that brings in our monitor and SSD health and all that kind of data, we can get that to build some custom data set stuff for us around 11 readiness. So that might be something that's worthy of a bit of further investigation. That could be kind of cool.
do we support single sign-on, John?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So if you authenticate with your Active Directory account, then the token will stay alive unless you deliberately sign out or don't sign back in again for 3 months or something like that. So once you have authenticated, you should remain authenticated. Yeah. Another question that tends to come up in the same kind of vein is around MFA, and so we do support MFA if you authenticate using Azure Active Directory, which you configure in here. Right now, there is a challenge associated with the functionality that we have with that versus the functionality that we have with on-premise AD authentication, which is that we don't have role to Azure AD group assignment at the moment. So the only thing that you can do is either manually assign a role after a user is first authenticated with Azure AD, or you can specify that certain roles are default. So everyone who logs in will automatically get this particular group as a default role. This particular role as a default. Again, it's something that we are working on and we're planning to bring in, but at the moment it's not quite as good an experience as you get with logging in with on-premise AD, but obviously Azure AD gives really straightforward MFA if that's something that you require.
There's a question that's come up. It says, is there any views in the dashboards that show superseded updates that are still being deployed out for means of cleaning up older updates deployments?
So I may need to call on Andy Lukaszewski at this point.
Yeah, it looks like in the chat, Andy said we do not today, but we will.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're just missing some toggles.
Awesome. One question we have here, John, can we install Advanced Insights on multiple servers for high availability?
So the short answer to that is not today. And that's primarily because of the way that Advanced Insights is built. It is a cloud application which we have configured to run on premise, and so one of the requirements that we have and is in active development right now is to support site aliasing, so that you can basically call it, advancedinsights.contoso.com, and once we have that support, then making it highly available will be trivial because it's just an IIS website ultimately. So we support high availability of the back end. So we have a small SQL database today that we need to host our configuration, and that can be always on SQL or whatever. But right now we don't support HA for the front end website. But again, it's in a near future release.
Are you saying, sorry, John, I'm going to ask a question here. Are you saying if Config9 customers are using HA for their own database, right now it doesn't work?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so there's no problem with the database.
Yeah, I think that's the question Justin asked. And so, yeah, we totally work if SQL for your site server is already highly available.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine. What we don't have yet
point at
is
the listener,
is multiple websites of Advanced Insights, such that if the machine it's running on is down, that there's a second one. But if your configuration is highly available or an active passive setup, we're totally fine.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no problem with that at all. So the question that's just come in from Shane there about RBAC. So all we need is that your UPN has to match your so basically the UPN that you log on with, your Microsoft account has to match the account that you have your rights through in Configuration Manager. So it's basically a string match on UPN. There's a question there about third-party MFA using Okta, etc. The short answer is I don't know. I don't know anything about how any of that works. So the only third-party MFA using Okta, etc. I don't know how that works. There's a question about notifying customers when an update is available. So, Justin's, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we send out emails at the moment. We'll also have in console notifications in a near future release.
Oh, good question here, John. In the requirements, it talks about that Advanced Insights has a SQL requirement that will disappear in the future. How will that look like?
Yeah, so right now we store the configuration that Advanced Insights hosts. So this is basic information around things like your warranty keys, not the warranty data, just the warranty API access keys that you have for Dell and Lenovo. Things like where your config manager site server database is. We store information about your users, so obviously people have a stub user account, and the roles and all that kind of data that we saw in the settings page. All of that is stored in the SQL database today. We have a working prototype here that we will ship in the next release or possibly the one after that, which moves that from using SQL or SQL Express to instead using LightDB. So we already use LightDB quite extensively for storing warranty information and various other bits and pieces of stuff. And it's because our requirements for that database are really small, we only need a little bit of config information. The SQL requirement is a bit of an overhead, and so we're going to swap that out for an in-memory database.
Awesome, thank you, John. One question that came up here, I think we've heard this once or twice. Is there a way to set up some kind of automatic monthly reporting on patches that gets emailed to execs?
Yeah, and people ask about this a lot, and I have been thinking about this for literally years. So the short answer is no. The longer answer is that's because we can't work out what that should look like. So one of the challenges with having a report or a product like this is that if I email this to you, that's not really much use, because obviously there's lots of pages here of individual devices. There's even more pages here of individual updates, and in a live environment it would be larger still. So I don't really know what that would look like. It would just be really kind of ugly. If you email out something like this page, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing it, am I? No, I'm not.
No.
Why not?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I email out this like top level dashboard page, for example, on a weekly basis, the donut charts don't work because they don't have a key, they're not pie charts. So you would only be able to see this one number, you'd have to guess at the other ones. And because this whole thing is built to be really interactive and to be a thing that you can drill through and massage and those kinds of things, I don't really know. If I sent you a PDF of this, it isn't really any use. And if I send you, I mean, I suppose there are scenarios where, like, for example, this page, maybe this data is sort of useful, but my experience of that scenario where I want to give an exec some information, my experience with that is that if I send the exec this report here, the first thing he's going to say is, why is that number so low? And then he's going to want to know what sits behind that. And so if I send him a PDF, he can't do that. And so I don't really know what that report looks like. I really like the idea that it exists, but we have never been able to work out what that should actually be like. So if anyone has any suggestions of, like, a mock-up of what they would want from that using the data that we present here in the Advanced Insights interface, then I'm super interested. But at the moment, we have tried with various sort of different bits and pieces of ways of doing that. None of it satisfactory.
The closest thing is the computer status dashboard, I think, under there, which we implemented to show exactly what's going off for every update against every device. And for some environments, this would be astronomically big, depending on the number of updates and obviously times by the number of devices you've got. But this sort of thing could be exported and be used as a at a glance sort of report of, exactly where each machine is against each update, I guess.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's something that you give to an exec, is it? They don't want, what is this, 868 rows of individual compliance data. So yeah, I'm really interested in the requirements, and we want to build things that people want. People do ask about it quite a bit, but so far I haven't seen anybody who could actually come up with what they want it to look like.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions got asked is, where can Advanced Insights be installed? So one of the things we've been asking support quite a lot of the times is, does it need to be installed with the publisher installed? The answer is probably not.
It doesn't need to be. If you do, then we'll read your license key out of the publisher, so we save you a little job there. But you can install it anywhere. So it needs a Windows Server operating system with IIS. It doesn't have to be co-located with Configuration Manager, but it can be. It doesn't have to be co-load with SQL, but it wants close proximity to SQL because we're running large, frequent SQL queries against the Config Manager SCCM database. So we definitely want that. But otherwise, you can install it basically anywhere. About 40%, I think we worked out, of our customers install it on an SCCM server, and the rest do not. If you do install it on your SCCM server, you have a very slightly easier job to do when it comes to installing our inventory extensions, but there's really not that much in it. So you can install it anywhere. The other thing that comes up from time to time is that in order for the threat analytics dashboard to render, we need your config manager database to be running at least SQL 2016 and to be at the compatibility mode for at least SQL 2016. So sometimes we see customers where there's no data presented here, and it's because they're still running either SQL 2012, which has been out of support for a year, so we shouldn't be doing, or they're running SQL 2016, 2019 or something later, but their compatibility mode is still set at 110, whereas it needs to be at least 130. And that's basically because SQL 2016 introduced a JSON handler for OpenJSON, which we use extensively when it comes to rendering the CVE data. I think the question about BitLocker querying the MBAM SQL database is no, because I think that that's no longer in support. I think that you are now required to integrate that with Config Manager. Once Config Manager and MBAM are together, then yes, we then render all that data, but we don't reach out into the MBAM database separately. So inventory data is not sent to NIST, Microsoft, Lenovo, etc. The only stuff that we do is we take a list of all of the KB articles which are required in your environment. So basically, we'll pick up KB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as a property, and then we query the MSRC NIST databases for documents that mention those updates. So we don't send them our inventory data. But we do need a list of all of the updates which are required, and then we ask NIST, do you know anything about this update?
Somebody's asked the question, say, can we create a custom role to show, like, if an exec wants to log in and see just reports on patching sort of thing? So yeah, we can create custom roles based
Absolutely.
on whatever you want to show. John showed that based on like what Patch Insights looks like. You can create custom roles on. If you just want them to see OSD, you can just see OSD dashboard. If you just want to see software updates, you can just get them to see software updates.
Yeah, and if you wanted that exec to just be able to see software updates for servers, then you can create them an RBAC role in Config Manager, which only shows them servers. We can also specify a different default collection that they would see for all the dashboards they view in Advanced Insights if you wanted to. Or you can just scope out which objects they can see from an RBAC perspective, and then you can give them a dashboard which literally just has software updates. Yeah. The question there about who needs access to the APIs, the server itself reaches out to those APIs, the users don't, and the API service by default runs on the network service, so the computer account basically reaches out to the APIs. We do support changing the app pool identity to a service account if you need to.
And currently, Advanced Insights is a separate installer to the publisher, by the way.
Today it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Just skimming through, there's any questions that are standing out that's worth showing. Someone's asked, can you create a software group based on missing updates from the interface? I think that's on the whiteboard to look into. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, so creating deployments for non-deployed updates, for example, and that kind of thing is something that that we're interested in. I think there's quite a few little bits and pieces of stuff where, I mean, I'm not really interested in trying to rewrite the config manager console in HTML. People have done that before and it's not really useful. But I think that there are support scenarios where, for example, if I see that a machine needs an update and that update is not deployed, then we should have the functionality to be able to action that. There are some questions about how you action that, though. Do you set up a one-off deployment for that update? Do you have the ability to add it to an existing software update group, etc.? So that's it's something that we're still chatting about internally, but it's the kind of thing that we envisage being able to do for sure.
Looks like we're kind of nearing the end of the hour for the webinar here. Is there any other questions you want to highlight?
Someone's asked nested group supported. I don't know what for. So if you want to assign a role to a group, we don't support nested groups for that. So you would have to basically create multiple roles in essence. So that's the only scenario I can think where nested groups might be even vaguely useful. So you would have to duplicate the roles in essence.
Well, TJM, Justin, is there anything else you want to follow up with before we get ready to end the webinar here?
Yeah, so many questions. I'm still going through the questions, trying to reply. I'll probably, even if we end, if there's still, you haven't got your question, I'm still going through typing lots of answers. Maybe give me 5-10 more minutes. But yeah, I just say, Justin and I have been working with John on this. His company obviously has been working on this for years before, and last week I was at a user group here in the Seattle area, and I kind of talked how while I ran the ConfigMan team for almost a couple of decades, reporting out of the box was one of my biggest kind of regrets of how insufficient it was. And so I'm happy for John here to kind of redeem me with the technology that not only is very functional, much more than out of the box, but it looks really good too. And so we're really excited about being able to take this technology and kind of unlocking all that data that's been locked in the ConfigMan database. I did the math, it's something like 65 ecobytes is kind of locked up, and this kind of unlocks that data for a lot of customers and just makes it more usable. So, and some of the things and some of the questions you could see, we might have said, well, we don't have it yet, but we're working on it. There's a lot of things on our roadmap of even more insights and more reports we want to bring to customers. And so I'm just really excited about what we're shipping today, but also where we'll be even a year from now and how much more data and insights we'll be able to bring to customers.
Yeah, and maybe I'll chime in there as well, just piggybacking off the questions. I mean, it's awesome to see how interactive this was. We're approaching 200 questions, just a lot of excitement. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for attending, as well as feedback on, not only how great the product looks today, but also the ideas and feedback you have of areas where we could add more value to it. So we're definitely, noting all of that on our user voice, ideas.patchmybc.com. We do also have a section dedicated to Advanced Insights. So even throughout this session, we've added quite a few user voices based on the feedback that we're seeing from the Q&A. So once again, just want to say thanks. And really the final call to action on my side would be, if you want to try this out, just go register for the Advanced Insights Showcase at patchmybc.com/advanced-insights. And thank you, John, if you want to wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've nothing much further to add there. I'm really grateful for you all taking the time. It's been good fun. One of the key things that my team here are interested in, I have whiteboards all around the office here of customer requests, and we're building the new functionality that we're adding into Advanced Insights, whether it's new extensions for things that we want to gather inventory for. So we're looking at certificates at the moment, local users and groups, user rights. Those are things which customers have specifically asked for, but also if there are other dashboards or bits of data presentation that you're interested in seeing, then we're also really interested in hearing about that too. So please do let us know. But yeah, it's been good fun, and it's been great hearing from you all.